Imagine swimming for 14 hours straight through cold, rough waters with jellyfish stinging you and the currents pushing you off course. This was Gertrude Ederle's reality as she fought to make history. Today, we'll dive into both the book and the movie, The Young Woman and the Sea, comparing storytelling, historical accuracy, character, and emotional depth, and even learn some fact or fiction along the way. So stick around to the end to see how much you know about this young woman who swam across the English Channel. As usual, there will be spoilers for both the book and the movie. The Young Woman and the Sea is a biographical sports novel written by Glenn Stout, published in 2009. It follows the story of Gertrude Trudy Ederle and how she became the first woman to swim the English Channel. There were some real-life challenges that she had in her life before attempting to swim. But what really drove Trudy to swim the English Channel despite all the odds stacked against her? Let's take a closer look at her motivations, something the book dives deep into. First question, fact or fiction? Trudy Ederle lost her hearing after contracting measles. Fact. When she was young, she contracted measles, and one of the effects of this was a loss of hearing. From chapter 3. They began to notice subtle changes in the way she reacted and behaved. Street noise and the clatter of city life seemed to distract her. She sometimes misheard what was said and began to speak louder than she had before. When everyone was talking at once, a common occurrence at family get-togethers, when German and heavily accented English flew back and forth across the dinner table in overlapping conversations, Trudy seemed confused. It soon became apparent that she simply didn't hear very well anymore. But her trials didn't end there. Even swimming for her was a challenge. Let's test your knowledge. Trudy Ederle was a natural swimmer. Fiction. At 9 years old, she couldn't swim at all, not even the dog paddle. Her parents became very protective of her following an incident at a swimming hole. Trudy had gone to the swimming hole too, but once, when she was playing in the water and everyone was turned around and looking the other direction, she had slipped in just over her head and had to be pulled out, sputtering to shore. She hadn't come close to drowning, not really, but it had given her father and mother a start, and now they were protective, maybe even overprotective of their youngest daughter. Eventually, of course, she did learn how to swim and became more skilled at it over time. Later, the Women's Swimming Association was formed, but both the organization and its members experienced opposition to having women in the water. The major problem was, in a sense, semantic. Over much of the next decade, any call to teach women how to swim for its own sake inspired moral outrage. Opponents of swimming became half hysterical as they imagined the deleterious effects on public virtue. If women were allowed to commingle with men in pools and on public beaches, particularly if they did so while not fully and conservatively clothed. These three trials, loss of hearing, learning to swim, and opposition to her even being in the water, were all included in the movie. It's nice when a movie tries its best to respect and emulate the source material. It is a compliment to both the film and the book. Now, that's not to say that the movie didn't take liberties. Of course it did. But for some of the main trials in her life and the things that really shaped her, they were similar. Now, the main character is obviously Trudy Ederle. Daisy Ridley does a fine job as Trudy. True or false? Daisy Ridley's portrayal of Trudy Ederle gives her long, inspiring speeches throughout the movie. It's actually false. Let's talk about Daisy Ridley's performance and how it compares to the Trudy we read about. I personally didn't feel Daisy Ridley was at all miscast, but to me it was weird how little speaking lines she had in important moments in the movie. For example, when Trudy is talking with her sister Margaret about Margaret's marriage, Margaret reveals that she isn't marrying the person that she thought she would. Margaret is marrying a different person that she didn't really like, but who has close ties to the family. In that scene, Daisy Ridley's lines were limited. In the marriage scene, Daisy Ridley only has 23 seconds of dialogue in a nearly 2-minute conversation. This happens again later with just 18 seconds of lines on the dock. It makes Trudy feel unnecessarily passive in pivotal moments. As a fan of the movie, I would say that she is adequate and that her character arc is not limited by her lack of longer dialogue. But as a critic, I would say that the movie creators are aware of her limitations, understanding that Daisy Ridley is adequate as an actress, but not the most talented. So they surround her with people who are talented and who can do a better job of delivering lines. Basically, Daisy Ridley has the star power and recognition to be the main character, but not the skill to elevate the movie beyond its story. When watching the movie, aside from Trudy's difficult journey, one can't help but notice the theme of women empowerment. This raises two questions. Are these exaggerated for a modern audience, and were they actually a part of her life? Let's first talk about the source material. Glenn Stout, the author of the book, is very open about his resources. He used newspaper articles and other books in his research, all of which he mentions at the end of the book. He is more thorough and open about his research than other authors who have written similar books, especially modern authors. And the story events that occurred are very logical, especially in the context of the time and period. And the main story was Trudy's journey. It was not the messaging. Her obstacles did not seem illogical. Fact or fiction? In real life, Trudy Ederle's father was not supportive of her swimming the English Channel. That's fiction. Trudy's dad was much more supportive in real life and the book than he was in the movie. But that's a minor detail, and those details often happen in other similar movies. It's a really good logical story of doing something in a field where you are in some way pioneering for a group or identity. Did you know that in real life, Trudy's trainer was accused of sabotaging her first attempt? The movie takes a different approach. Let's break down what really happened. In Trudy's first attempt to cross the English Channel, her trainer did not believe that she could make it across. So, in the movie, he deliberately put obstacles in her way and even sabotaged her health so that he could justify having someone take her out of the water. In the book, the trainer was actually accused of being much more sinister. The WSA released a statement on September 21st that backed Trudy to the hilt. It was doing so, stated the report, in justice to Miss Ederle, who had been placed on a false light before the American public by statements of her English trainer, Wolf. The statement went on to attack Wolf at every opportunity, charging not only that he did have her pulled from the water prematurely, but that the tug he enlisted did not have a compass on board, which forced Trudy to swim a circuitous route much farther than necessary, that he tried to get her to abandon the crawl stroke in favor of the side stroke, that he unnecessarily frightened her about sharks, undercut her confidence, due to his own reticence, wouldn't allow her to train far offshore for long periods of time, and gave her absolutely no encouragement and found fault with everything she did. In the movie, the trainer is much more divided about his actions, but still stops her first attempt prematurely. A good lesson for those trying to achieve something that others have not. Not only will there be opposition, but there could also be sabotage. Fact check time. True or false? In the movie, Trudy swam through a massive group of jellyfish during her English Channel attempt. Fact. The second impactful scene is the jellyfish scene. In the book, Stout mentions how Trudy would have encounters with jellyfish from time to time, and that they would hinder her in many ways. But in the movie, this is done much more dramatically with a scene in which Trudy needs to swim through a smack of jellyfish. It is much more dramatic and much more impactful, especially for those who have had experience with jellyfish. Overall, the movie stays true to the book's major events, with strong themes of determination, hard work, and accomplishment. It's a good story that I think would be beneficial for any fan of sports movies. But let me know what you thought in the comments. Have you seen the movie or read the book? What was your favorite part? Comment, and I'll see you next time.